Okay, so again, we're here to discuss the Coyote Creek Agrivoltaic Ranch project, the environmental impact report that's being prepared. This is the public scoping meeting with a broader range of persons attending. My name is Allison Little. I'm an associate planner. I forgot to fix that there with Sacramento County Planning and Environmental Review. I work directly with Julie Newton, Senior Planner, and Joelle Inman, the Environmental Coordinator. The county is contracted with AECOM to prepare the environmental document for this project. The project manager is Stephen Smith, and the project director is Matthew Gerken. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to gather input for the environmental impact report. Specifically, we're looking to help identify environmental topics that should be our focus, suggest alternatives and or mitigation measures that we should consider in the document, and any concerns that you have regarding this project and the potential to impact the environment. Real briefly, I'm going to go over where we are in the environmental review process. We have released the notice of preparation. It's currently in its 30-day comment period. The comment period will close on February 18th. We are holding, this is the second of the scoping meetings. We had a scoping meeting yesterday as well. Following the close of the notice of preparation public comment period, AECOM will begin preparing the draft EIR. There will be a second chance to provide any comment on this project during the draft EIR public comment period. It will go to the Planning Commission and ultimately the County Board of Supervisors for final approval. With that, I'm going to hand this over to Matthew Gerken to discuss the project in detail.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you very much. And good evening, everyone. And thanks very much for dedicating some of your precious time to learning more about this project and providing your input. I'm going to provide a little overview of the project and the process here in the next few slides. The project is located at what is colloquially known as Barton Ranch, south of US 50, northwest of Rancho Murrieta, and directly adjacent and southeast of the Prairie City State Vehicle Recreation Area, SVRA. Project site, if you add up all the acreage and all of the parcels on the project site, it totals 2,555 acres, though not all of that land will be disturbed by the project. There's also an off-site component 1.3 mile transmission line to reach an existing SMUD facility for tie-in for this solar project. 200 megawatt solar facility, on-site substation, energy storage, meteorological towers, backup generators, as well as access and internal roadway and fencing, the transmission line I talked about, as well as a switchyard. Next, please. This slide depicts the overall project site, including portions to the west. You can see Prairie City cart track there that could be affected by the need for a transmission line and changes to easements along that portion of the property. Next slide shows more detail for the proposed project, including where the actual solar arrays are planned. You can see the point of interconnection with the existing SMUD substation there, entrance gates, the battery storage and on-site substation in the northwestern portion of the project site. Next, please. The project objectives are a really key part of an environmental review process, are presented here and in the notice of preparation. Objectives include providing a local supply of solar energy, a cost-effective utility scale solar energy to help SMUD reach its 2030 net zero carbon target and its renewable portfolio standards obligations, to comply with all SMUD guidance on criteria for sizing, et cetera, to optimize the use of existing transmission facilities that are adjacent to this project site, and finally, to provide local employment and training opportunities for a variety of building trades. A few more details to help everyone to understand what's proposed here. The solar photovoltaic or PV panels will be mounted on tracking systems grouped in arrays and arranged in blocks, as you saw on that previous exhibit. There'll be power conversion stations on site, energy storage with a capacity of about 400 megawatts. Transmission line extending to the west, that's also called a gen tie. It'll be mounted on about 150-foot tall poles. It will go for around 1.3 miles to connect in with existing SMUD power lines. And as I mentioned earlier, may require some changes to a portion of the state vehicular recreation area in order to accommodate the easement that will have that transmission line within it. The project will go on operationally for about 35 years, and there'll be a decommissioning plan that's required to restore the site to its current conditions after the life of the project. Construction will take around a year, involve up to 250 workers per day, 5 to 40 truck trips. Grading will occur on a significant portion of the project site, though not all of it. PV panels will be placed on driven piles during construction as well. Looking at the operations side, the solar component will be monitored remotely, and therefore not a big need for employees to visit the site every day, 4 to 10 trips per day, but 1 to 4 times per year for about 2 weeks. Up to 10 individuals will be required in order to wash the panels. And at this point, the project proposes to continue sheep grazing during the operational phase of the project. The next 2 slides show some representative photos just to give you an idea. Substation on the left, the arrays shown here from a representative facility at 100 feet on the right. The next slide shows access gate and roadway, what that might look like, as well as what battery storage buildings could look like on the project site. Now getting into the environmental process, what we're mostly here to talk about tonight. The EIR will include these chapters, including project direct impacts, as well as alternatives to the proposed project, cumulative impacts, and other required CEQA topics. The EIR will include a more detailed discussion of the topics you see on this slide based on the nature, the location of the project, looking at aesthetics, ag, air quality, biological resources, and consistency with the South Sacramento Habitat Conservation Plan. Climate change, cultural and tribal cultural resources, hazards, hydrology and water quality, land use, noise and vibration, transportation, and wildfire impacts of the project. But the scope of the actual analysis in the IR is dependent in part on what we heard last night and what we hear tonight from you. What do you think the EIR should include? What do you think potentially significant effects are? What do you think ways to mitigate those impacts would be? Or what alternatives should we think about including as a part of this EIR? Do you have other concerns that relate to adverse environmental consequences that you would like to state for us tonight? If so, that would be very helpful too. We have multiple people online here to take notes and incorporate your input ultimately into the scope and analysis of the environmental document. This note at the bottom just lets you know that we're not here tonight, and I'm not able to go over the merits of the project, why it should or should not happen. Tonight is about environmental comments on what should the scope of the environmental document look like. Finally, on this slide, you can see where you could send those written comments. They are just as effective and they are worth just as much as the verbal comments that you offer tonight, because we'll be taking them down. But if you'd rather write out your thoughts, then you can send them to Joelle Inman with her contact information listed on slide here. You can use the email address that is identified at the bottom of this slide. At this point, I would like to turn it back over to Allison, who will moderate your input. Thank you all.
Forget, take myself off mute. Yes, with quite a few participants, don't feel shy to speak up. We'll figure out our turns. Yeah, if you'd like to start with questions about the project, that would be fine. If you want to jump right into your comment, that's fine as well.
Allison, perhaps before we start comments, I just wanted to, a little housekeeping. As you all are giving your comments, it will help us immensely, although we can read it on the Zoom menu here. But if you could introduce yourself with your name, that would be very helpful for us so we can keep track of your comments.
And I would also just like to reiterate that if you'd like to be added to the CEQA mailing list for this project, please email us at that ceqa@saccounty.net email address with your contact information. We are trying to do more paperless mailings. So if you do have an email address that we could send things to, that would be great. And I can go back to any slides that you would like to see again.
Allison, why don't you put it back to that slide that identifies the sorts of input we're looking for this evening? It might help to spur some thought.
Great.
The next one, actually. Yeah, there we go.
So, Allison, if you're looking for a guinea pig, I'll be happy to jump in and
Is this Scott?
Yeah, this is Scott Lowridge.
You're kind of quiet. If there's a way to speak up or.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean, I can hear you, but you're pretty quiet.
Let me get closer to my machine here.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so my name is Scott Lowridge. My family owns the Scott Ranch on Scott Road, just south of Barton's. Us and the Bartons have probably been neighbors for 150 years or so now. So we're fairly familiar with the area. And while this might not be appropriate, we are at this time in favor of the project. We feel it's a benign use and it affords a lot of good things that Stan Van Vleck mentioned in his letter last week. So please don't take my comments as a negative, other than or more like concerns that items I think need to be addressed in the EIR. So obviously you talk about mitigation, and I'm sure the county will speak to if there's some hawk issues or oak tree issues, that sort of thing. I'm sure there's plenty of regulations to address that, and I would expect to see in the report some sort of conditions of satisfaction that would address that. I'm curious about any drainage study, water runoff from the panels themselves I'm just curious how they handle that. And if there's a collection process that can go to help irrigate the landscaping they're thinking about putting along Scott Road. So that would be interesting to see what that might be. I didn't see in the landscape plan any discussion about revegetation of native grasses in and around under these panels that are supposedly going to be there for the sheep grazing. So in the soils report, you'd notice the topsoil is very shallow. So I would suggest that there's some verbiage in the report about collecting, stockpiling whatever existing topsoil there is, and then how it's going to be redistributed in order to help the native grasses grow back, and whatever revegetation plans there are for those native grasses. I didn't see anything about that. I might have missed it. And once again, I would suggest there be conditions of satisfaction that need to be met, and milestones for those conditions. And then what is the recovery plan if those conditions and milestones aren't met? And then what is plan B if the recovery plan doesn't work? So I think there's some additional homework that needs to be done along those lines that would make it desirable for sheep grazing to actually happen on this site. There again, I'm all about multiple use, so I think it's a great idea. When I went to the Solar Grazing Association's website, I was underwhelmed because I didn't see any pictures really of conditions that are similar to what we would see on Barton's. And in fact, the one picture I saw, they were feeding the sheep out of a bucket, and the weeds in the background were invasive weeds that were growing underneath the panels. So that wasn't a very good one for advertising their benefit. So I'm a little concerned. I'd be a little concerned about, making sure we've got conditions of satisfaction and milestones and recovery plans and plan Bs if things aren't, milestones aren't met. Same thing with these acorn hedges. I'm not opposed to the hedges themselves. I'm not sure you need hedges, some kind of landscaping, but I'm not sure you need a wall of acorn hedges that probably wouldn't be there for, this got a useful life of 35 years. Maybe the last 5 years there might be an acorn hedge. So I'm not sure that's the viable idea, but I applaud whoever's idea it was. Interesting to push that envelope. The civil drawings indicate that you're going to cut and fill 3.4 million yards of dirt. And somewhere along in this, you're going to complete this project in 12 months. That's doing a lot of dirt in that amount of time. And if you do the math, that amounts to about 20 inches of cut and 20 inches of fill across 50% of the 2,500 acres. I assume that's about what the coverage is. So there will be some, obvious disturbance, and, there again, conditions of satisfaction, I believe, need to be established that the native grasses revegetation can actually happen, because the topsoil is so shallow, and you've got, according to the soils report, you got a lot of rock, you got gravelly sands, which, I'm not saying they won't grow, but I think that needs to be addressed in the report to make sure that what we're hearing, it can actually be achieved. And so I think that that pretty much takes care of my comments, and I'll summarize these, and I will email them to you, because I'm sure I didn't make a lot of sense talking. So I'll try and be a little more coherent in a email to you. And thank you for the time.
Sure. Yeah, just to answer one of your questions, is the applicant has been asked by the county water resources to prepare a drainage study that hasn't been submitted yet. So we'll look in that drainage study for your concerns there.
Yeah, I'm not so concerned about the drainage. I'm just curious as to what options you have to maybe collect and reuse that water for irrigation benefits, or for water troughs for the sheep. I mean,
That's
I'm
very
just curious.
creative. That's a good thing to consider. Thank you. Okay, I see Pamela Pan, you've requested to speak.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I just came in on the meeting, so is this strictly these questions for the environmental impact report?
Yes.
Okay, one of my questions that I have is the black-tailed deer herds that we have out here. When you put in these solar panels and fence out everything, what's going to happen with their natural trailing, through these properties now? It's going to completely deroute these deer herds.
Okay. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to your question.
Is the fencing going to be completely where no animals can get in to the solar areas?
Currently, that is
Wild
what's
animals?
proposed. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's all I have to say about it. So it
Okay.
is a permanent fencing that no wildlife will be able to get in or exit out of those areas.
From the preliminary design, that's what I understand right now. I believe Nate has forwarded this question on to the environmental staff, and so we are taking that into consideration, seeing if there is some alternative that could be proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Is anyone else prepared to ask a question or provide any information you have regarding your specific concerns? So if you are still, learning about this project, thinking about this project, you can go on the county's planning project viewer through our website. You can type in the name of the project and it should lead you to a whole bunch of documents, all the various documents that have been submitted so far for this project. So you can look them over, zoom in and out. The scale of the mapping is, because it's such a large project, there's many pages of the various quadrants of the project to kind of look through and see how that might impact you if you live next door or nearby. We just encourage you to go ahead and continue to use the planning projects viewer as your source to get information updates on this project.
Allison, is there another meeting tomorrow? I think I read in Nate's email something. Is there another meeting tomorrow? I think at 11:30 or so.
No, I think what you were thinking of was the first scoping meeting. We held that yesterday with the state, federal, county agencies to receive their input as well. Oh, I'm hearing that the design review committee is tomorrow.
Okay, that was what I saw.
Okay.
That is that a public forum as well?
I'm going to have Nate speak to that.
Hi, this is Nate from Current Planning. Could you repeat the question? I could barely hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that design review meeting tomorrow? Is that a public forum as well?
It is open to the public. They do rarely attend. It is comprised of 3 architects that would be considering just the design aspects of the project. And that is 11 a.m. And it's scheduled possibly all the way till 1. We don't normally go till 1, but it depends on the number of items being reviewed. And the Coyote Creek project will be discussed tomorrow at the Design Review Advisory Committee.
Okay, well, I might be interested in hearing what architects have to say. So,
Yeah, certainly. It is open to the public. We encourage public participation in all our forums.
okay, great. Thank you.
Just remind you, if you don't have the information already, how to contact us. And if you have questions more broadly about the planning process, Nate Doberneck, who just spoke, is the planner for this project. You can check in with him as well.
Yes, this is Pamela Payan again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, this may fall under the planning portion of this, but what about the glare sources from this said project? Does that fall into your scoping at all?
Yes, it does. So there has been a glare analysis submitted. It needs to go through peer review with AECOM. if you have specific directional concerns, if you wouldn't, I think you have shared that with Nate. He provided that to me already. So I'll work with
And I do. I look directly down into this project. I look into the whole 4-mile scope of this project, and then I look directly down from my residence, from my home, into the south portion of this project at the Boys Ranch Road and Scott Road area.
Okay. I believe the
And
glare analysis is available through the planning projects viewer.
Yes, I've already read it.
Okay.
It's pretty vague.
Okay.
I've done research on it myself, and there is going to be glare from this project because of the size and the scope of this project, and also not just from the panels itself, but from the metal framing of those panels. So there is going to be a glare reflection issue, and which would affect my view from my house, reflecting back on all my windows that face that area, which is quite substantial.
Okay, I'm sure AECOM took those notes as well to make sure that their peer review includes your property's direction.
And I have spoken with Herb Garms on this issue, one of the property owners, and I have spoken with one of from Dan, is it Daniel Meehan? One of the project managers, and Nate, and that about this issue, and they were tentative on it, but I need to have it, follow through with the county also, because there is going to be an issue, and there are ways that we can resolve it.
Yeah, so that will be all considered in this environmental document in the analysis.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak tonight? It's okay if you don't. Just wanted to provide this opportunity for you to learn a little bit more and to know where to direct any comments or suggestions you might have regarding alternatives to the project, mitigation that we might consider. If not, I don't want to take up the rest of your evening if we don't need to. And we can call it a night.
Thank you.
All right. Well, again, thank you all for taking time tonight to hear this project.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Allison.
Allison.